Happy Friday, everybody. Blake Middleton, Stingray, Philip Laffin, Alistair Murray down in Australia, Chris Exley on the East Coast, Salem, Mass. We are in Studio B, both Julia and myself. After these early morning 0500 watch parties, Julia, it's nice to have you back in studio.
It's great to be back.
Ed Worley checking in as well from SoCal. Graham Sweeney, one of our regular Zoomers now in Yell, Scotland. We've got a great show today. One of our best shows. I can't help myself. We're going to be focused on the America's Cup a fair bit, as you can see there once we get past Jon Emmett. Julia is going to keep me awake.
Yes.
I've been slapping myself on the cheeks. I had a 19-hour workday yesterday between 3.5 hours on the air and then working to get this show ready late last night. But here we go, off the starting line into the wild blue yonder. Those of you who are non-Americans, that's our Air Force.
Yes.
Fight song, I guess you would call it.
Yeah. Riding high into the sky.
Julie Aarons saying hello, FOSI from Cleveland. We're going to feature Cleveland in today's show. It's going to be fun. Bob Walker from North Texas. Alan Long taking a break from tennis in 77 degrees. Sounds like a beautiful day in New York City, Alan Long.
Yep.
He gets around, between Texas and Cleveland and New York and Newport. Ryman's checking in from Cape Town. Bannerow is checking in from hello, 2 days away from His Royal Highness Prince Joachim from Denmark, visiting the Stanford Denmark race. Yeah, that's an annual September affair. I've sailed in that.
That's nice.
It's a good affair at the Stanford Yacht Club, Stamford, Connecticut. Why they have a connection with the Danes is not a mystery. Maybe Rick will put that in the comments. Mark Holland checking in from Boston. Nice to see you, Mark. Nice to see all of you. Welcome to Studio B for our regular Friday show. We appreciate you all coming on live and in color. Julia, I trust you are well.
I am.
Go ahead.
Providing I don't do too many more 5 o'clock.
Well, you can't have it both ways. You don't have to, you can lay up there in bed and watch it.
Yep.
And then bitch and moan about it the next day.
Yes.
I'm too old. See, that's the problem. I'm too old to do this. But we are live in Studio B. We're delighted to have you all here. Thank you for joining us again on our regular show. I can put our cover slide up. We do this every Tuesday and Friday, our normal show, on Sailing Illustrated's Facebook page, also my personal Facebook page, and the SITV YouTube channel. We had, Julia, almost 1,000 views, 800 and something views on just YouTube alone yesterday.
That's incredible.
Of yesterday morning's watch party. And that doesn't, then we have the thousands of views on Facebook as well. And we had over 400 comments yesterday in that 3.5 hour show. Part of that was because the show was long, but it was good fun. We'll do it again tomorrow, 0500 tomorrow morning, and again Sunday morning. There is racing scheduled both days. We're going to start today with a bit of a FOSI focus, an FF, a FOSI, FOSI, Julie, because I got more than one in focus today.
Yeah.
FOSI focus, of course, we're referring to Friends of Sailing Illustrated. That acronym, I guess that is an acronym, right?
Yeah.
Friends of Sailing Illustrated, and it's about cool people. It's all of you who join the show, watch regularly, come on the show, support us as patrons, and we will celebrate the three guys to start here. First of all, I should say, Julie, I almost forgot. I want to thank Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin for coming on the show. Why am I on that shot? I really wanted to be on this shot over here. As I turn to you, pull my jacket down and look, yes. I really want to thank Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin for coming on the show.
Yes.
And helping us out with the preview of the Maxi Cup that's going, the Rolex Maxi Worlds is going on in Porto Cervo. this weekend.
And you could pretend you're in Portachero.
You can pretend, well, what a lovely spot, too.
I know.
But let's celebrate the guys who've been regulars now. I call them the Zoomers for this watch party that we do every race day morning at 0500, which is 0800 on the East Coast, 1200 UTC, 1400 local Central European time in Barcelona. And yesterday in that show, we had what have become our three regular Zoomers, much appreciated, to Graham Sweeney there in the upper left, and to Gordon Smith there, front and center down below. Gordon, of course, in Denmark, Graham Sweeney up in Scotland, and Ed Worley down in SoCal in Southern California, an America's Cup and 12-meter expert par excellence. All three of them, great comments yesterday, much appreciated. And thank you all for coming on. After yesterday's 3.5-hour watch party, we had this very nice video from Graham Sweeney.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the FOSI. I'd just like to say a big thank you for what you're doing on these shows. They're absolutely fantastic. The watch party's been brilliant. I mean, the insights we've had, the information, the camaraderie, it's all been absolutely fantastic, and it should be applauded. And I'd like just to say thank you for that. Graham Sweeney, Midgell, Shetland, somewhere out in the middle of the nowhere, out.
Wasn't that nice?
Oh, that was
I sent that to you yesterday, didn't I? After the show?
You didn't. No, that was really nice.
No, I sent that to you yesterday after the show. I think I texted or emailed it to you, but that was really nice. And of course, he's thanking us, but thank you, Graham, because you've made a hell of a contribution to these watch parties. He's the only one, I think, that's been on
all of them.
All of them, or almost all of them, the first day, or he may have missed one of those preliminary regatta days, but
he had something else to do.
Well, yeah, it's nice that he has the time. Same with Gordon, same with Ed Worley, who came on, and he is a lovely guy. And thank you, nicely said. Thank you very much, Graham. We deeply appreciate it. He's also the one that came up with our favorite logo, our favorite meme for these yacht races that are going on in Barcelona. And he's the one who coined the phrase, the Whack-A-Mole Cup, because of the four guys, you all get that.
Right.
Alan Long, everybody's saying nice to Graham. Thanks for that, Graham. Thank you very much. Rick Banner saying Victor Borge, the Danish musician and humorist, the pianist. I saw him live with my grandmother more than once. My grandmother was a huge fan.
Yeah.
And his friend Werner Jensen from the Stanford Yacht Club wanted to promote more friendly business between the U.S. and Danish businesses, so they made a bet for a case of Tuborg beer. 50 plus years later, we have had almost 85 boats registered for the Danish-American Friendship Cup, or whatever it's formally called, at the Stanford Yacht Club. Bravo Zulu to you, Rick Banner, and to everybody at the Stanford Yacht Club. As I say, I've had the pleasure of sailing in that, and did a presentation there one time about what else, the America's Cup, way back.
Yeah.
We've also heard, speaking of FOSI or focuses, in Barcelona, Julie, to recognize Andrea Tagliamaco with his Fu Manchu. He looks like hell. If you're watching, Andrea, he used to be so cute, and now he looks, well, we've all gotten more
stylish.
He's gotten very stylish with the big facial hair, and of course he is still working on the ocean race as a senior guy there. And then on his left, on the right in that photo, is Benedict Horber, who I've known forever. He's from Augsburg, Germany, his family is, and they are also early members of the Gstaad Yacht Club.
Oh, they are.
And he's helped out as a volunteer in any number of America's Cups, and I gather he is, as Andrea. I think Andrea may be visiting, but a lot of you will know Andrea because he was with Artemis for many years with that team. And Benedict Horber, perhaps, if you're German or connected with Gstaad Yacht Club. One other FOSI I want to recognize and thank. Do you know, Julia, who this gentleman is?
No.
Does this help?
Yes.
That is our FOSI, Jamie Hutchison, who hails from Saratoga Springs, New York, and is the gentleman who sent us in the mail
Yes.
this coffee, the Death Wish coffee, Julia.
I got a 6-bottle case of Death Wish water.
Death Wish water? Is there such a thing?
Oh.
Are
And
you sure it's Death Wish? It must, because I think they only make coffee.
well,
I could be wrong.
it was very frightening because
Why do they call it Death Wish coffee or water?
I don't know.
Do you know why they call this Death Wish coffee?
No.
Because it's so bloody strong. You have to have a death wish to drink it.
Well,
So look, there's more to the story. Let me
right.
go on with the story.
Right.
So that is Jamie Hutchison, and he wrote a note, email, and he said, "Hello, Tom and Julia. I have wanted to send this special coffee for some time, and now that you are up before the sun with the watch parties, I thought the time was now. Please send me a secure mailing address," which I did, and he has now sent us this Death Wish coffee. Backstory: Death Wish coffee is from Saratoga County in New York, where he lives. It was a small business until they applied and won, he thinks circa 2012, a contest for his free Super Bowl ad. Our big football game here in January, now early February. Not surprisingly, their business took off and they now distribute nationwide. The fact that their 30-second commercial has a sailing angle is an added touch. So thank you, Jamie. Thank you very much for that. And Julia, do you think we'd have that sailing commercial?
Well, of course.
Of course.
The day of reckoning is upon us! My brothers, what is life, if not to die a glorious death? Fear not, for tonight we drink in the halls of Valhalla! Row! Awaken and welcome death!
That's their
Death
Super
Wish
Bowl
coffee,
ad.
fiercely caffeinated.
Seriously or furiously, I can't remember what they said, but
Yeah.
does that remind you of somebody? Does that not remind you of Graham Sweeney?
Oh.
I saw that ad
Yeah.
and I thought, there's our resident Viking.
Oh, yes. Well, yes.
And he just, I immediately thought of you, Graham, if you're watching. Yeah, there's Andrew Pindar saying, was that Graham on the helm?
I know.
Stingray is saying,
Yeah.
nice, Jamie H. Yep. The Death Wish stuff is there's Graham's with his comment, that's pre-colonic prep.
Oh.
Yeah, we're all okay. Well, thanks for that. Thanks, Jamie Hutchison. Thanks to all of you for supporting the show. And speaking of celebrating, by the way, Julia, I did order. You've got a coffee grinder upstairs.
Yeah.
But I got to have one down here. I can't come up there and be using your coffee grinder all the time. So I ordered one off of Amazon, and it comes tomorrow.
Oh.
So we can have some Death Wish coffee. Maybe not tomorrow morning, but if I'm more caffeinated up on Sunday morning for that watch party, you all will know why. Julia, what are we celebrating today?
Tequila.
No.
No.
There's a hint. It is a tequila bottle, obviously. It's Silver Patron. That's the stuff Andy Rose likes to drink.
Yes.
It's his favorite tequila.
It's very good.
That's your hint. And I'm just too. Julie Aaron said I was grumpy in a texting back and forth with her yesterday, and I am after these watch parties at 0500. But I'm trying to cheer up. You've cheered me up. Thank you.
Oh, good.
You have cheered me up. But we are celebrating our patrons, Julie. We're celebrating our patrons. We have had 4 new patrons in the last 2 days.
Yay.
And we appreciate all of you. I'm not going to name you because I haven't asked your permission to do that, but we sure appreciate those of you who do give us a few bucks. And we have 4 new patrons via Patreon, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. So we're celebrating Patron Day, Patron Day today. And Stingray is one of those who sent through a nice, actually healthy contribution. Since we're not. Singer, just have you tried dipping your testicles into that Death Wish coffee? Julia!
I know.
Help me out!
Oh.
Gorgeous.
Prepaying for a finger wag.
Oh, man, Stingray. That gets everybody drinking. I think that's the new drinking
Oh.
code.
No.
Gordon Smith, I tried roasting coffee beans at home. I recommend against it. Smoke filled the house and the coffee was the strongest that I have ever brewed. There is P. Blake Z from Australia. Good morning to you, sir. It's early there, 6:15 in Sydney and Melbourne, 08:15 in Auckland. Thanks again to all of you who support this show, this channel, this Studio B. That money, by the way, I was going to say too, the money that comes in from Patreon, we use it exclusively on Studio B,
Right.
on Sailing Illustrated stuff. I don't buy any groceries with that. We don't buy anything except equipment for the studio. We pay the streaming bills and yada yada.
Yeah.
And my generous landlady, you know, we try to take,
The rent.
the rent, such a deal that it is. And we try to take care of the landlady, but not with Patreon money, actually.
Mhm.
Julia, I'm going to make some predictions here, and we'll get into that in a bit. But there's other things going on in the sport, as we said on Tuesday's show. So let's take up where we left off on Tuesday with the Finn Gold Cup in Aarhus in Denmark that ends tomorrow. And it's they had a day off yesterday, lack of wind, and then it's been a fabulous day today. And here is their video. I think there's their video.
Oh, that's good music.
Nice music.
Yeah.
Look at that, not a cloud in the sky. Beautiful 14, 15, 16 knots of breeze. 100-boat fleet, give or take, from what, 20 countries?
Yeah.
And this Finnish gentleman, Mahonen, then leads around the last. He won all 3 races yesterday. And they've got 1 day left in the championship, which is tomorrow, Saturday. Bravo Zulu to the Finn class and everybody involved. Robert Deeves, thank you for sending that along. The chasing also in the hunt. Well, this is Oskari Muhonen from Finland, the Finn who's about to win the Finn Gold Cup. He is leading. We'll show you the scores in a moment, but also in the hunt is the son of my longtime judging friend. We did at least 2 Olympics together on the jury, Miklos Nemeth, and this is his son, Domo Nemeth from Hungary, and he is a bit of the bridesmaid in this regatta. He's had a string of seconds, as the Finn has had a string of firsts, as you'll see here in the results. Oskari Muhonen from Finland, look at his scores. 3, throws out a 3rd place. That's the number in the parentheses. 3, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
Wow.
And Domo Nemeth is on a 1. Then he threw out a 65th. He was down in the cheap seats for a while until the throw-out came through. It only comes through after X many races. 1, 2, 5, 2, 2, 3. He's counting. So bravo Zulu to him. Julie, our favorite person in this fleet is, I went to 12th place, so we could include Peter Pete from the Netherlands. Not that we know the gentleman. I guess it's a gentleman. You have to check these days, don't you?
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
Since people aren't declaring their pronouns, we don't know if it's a Mr. or a Mrs. or a Ms. or whatever, Julia.
Yeah, I admire the Finnish Danish sailors, and we have just had here at IKC.
It's going on right now.
Yeah.
The IKC continues
Right.
through this weekend, the International Canard class championship.
And they're all rabid and all generations, and it's really fun.
Indeed. In fact, speaking of Denmark, Gordon Smith reminds us, and I was going to lead with this, but I'll cover it on Tuesday, assuming we do a show Tuesday. The WMRT women's event, the tour, World Match Racing Tour event, is currently being sailed at the Rungsted station of the KDY of the Royal Danish Yacht Club, about 15 minutes up the coast from Gordon. And he saw James Pleasance at lunchtime, the commissioner, the executive director of that circuit, so bravo Zulu to him. And they will be wrapping up in Aarhus, Denmark, this regatta tomorrow, final 3 races on tap. One more, I just want to say one more thing about this score sheet. I really like it when a class puts the total, that's what the T means, and the net score in the net, meaning the total minus the throwout. So he has a 10 total minus his 3 throwout, and that's the net score. And I love it when they put that in the first 2 columns, because if for some reason we don't want to run the rest of this slide,
right?
If we just want to cut and paste and have the name and their home yacht club. Look at this, they even put the home yacht club in. The Finn class is so wonderful.
Yes.
And we can do all that, see what country they're from, yada, yada, see what place they're in, without necessarily having to run out the details of what their finishes are. Bravo Zulu to the Finn class for doing that. In any class that puts the total in the net in the first 2 columns, please.
Yeah, that's a great format.
Great format indeed. Takes a real man if they, to what Joe Holtzman tried it and had a ball with it. Joe Holtzman's got, his fingers are a little fat this morning up in Estes, up this afternoon in Estes, Colorado. I got to shift back to afternoon. Yeah, okay. The Finn class is marvelous. The Star class about to have their big event down in San Diego. We'll check in on that too at some point. But in the meantime, let's check in with Jon Emmett in the coaching corner. He has sent a video from the family farm today, and he's talking about, not testicles, but about, sorry, Julia, he's talking about stiff rigs.
Oh, God.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the FOSI. Welcome to Imblehorn Farm. If you look very closely, you might be able to see a deer in the background. Now, I've struggled today to find a weather window to film because it just keeps on raining. So I thought perhaps it's a good day to go somewhere else. So, can you guess where I might go? The America's Cup has also suffered a little bit with the difficulties in the weather, but I think there's an old saying, something about good sailors don't complain about the weather, they just adjust their sails. And I think the America's Cup, just like any major competition, might not necessarily be won, but a team might lose it. And that's very obvious from this ability to sail in under 7 knots where they fall off the foils. But that's sailing. And you see it at the Olympic Games where the favourites don't manage to perform at the games due to an illness, injury, OCS, Rule 42, or a rule out of Part 2 disqualification. So I think this idea that it's the team who can consistently perform who's likely to take home the chocolates is just so important in the America's Cup. And every time I watch on YouTube, I see the viewing figures are gradually going up, so they must be doing something right. But let's see if you can guess where I'm going today. And first of all, in case I forget later, remember, share, comments always welcome, and please like. What better place to visit on a rainy day than Selden Masts? You can see here all the large mast sections and booms for the big boats, but what I'm interested in is looking at the Ilka composite sections. Now, when you're putting together the masts, you have to go with the class rules, and there are tolerances. So here we're looking at measuring the bend using a 25 kilo weight. So do you want the stiffest mast possible, the softest? Do you want it softer at the top or the middle or the bottom? This is what we're looking at.
And you thought I was kidding about John going to show us a stiff rig,
Right.
or at least measure how stiff. Well, I don't know whose rig that is, but that is. So there's the Jon Emmett report for today. Jon Emmett sailing Get ahead, get to the front of the fleet is his claim. And thank you, Jon, for that. He's stalked by a cat. He was stalked by a deer. That was quite an interesting report.
Yes.
I am punchy. I'm croutonic. I'm tired. Yeah, that was Selden Spars. I think that's the name of it, Alan Long, S-E-L-D. I don't know if the spelling is right. Hiding at my employer's. Hello, Henry Thorpe. Long time. Nice to see you on as well as we go to this day in history. Now, this one is really arcane, but it does involve sailing, Julia.
I wait to discover that.
What happened on this day, the 6th of September, 1522?
Oh, my gosh.
You want a clue? Your first clue. Here 'tis.
Henry the Navigator.
That is darn close. Prince Henry the Navigator, but it's not. But it's another Portuguese. I once stayed on a cruise ship in Portugal. That is a cruise ship that was retired, and they drove it up a creek. It was the Prince Henry the Navigator cruise ship, and it became a hotel. And we ran the Youth World Championships in a little town on the coast of Portugal, south of Lisbon, about an hour or two, called Sines, I think it was called, S-I-N-E-S, Sines, Portugal. We ran the World Youth Championships there in round about 80. So Prince Henry the Navigator, I've stayed aboard that retired cruise. It was croutonic too. It was awful.
And he's big in Portugal.
But I met Russell Coutts, I met Chris Dixon. We had a lot of those guys that were there. So now back to our that happened in this day in history. Did it have something to do with discovering the Americas? No. It is not Vasco da Gama. It is another Portuguese gentleman who turned Spanish. He went to Spain. Ferdinand Magellan from Portugal, lived not very long. He died after age 41. And as most of you will know, Magellan was a Portuguese explorer, best known for leading the first expedition to circumnavigate the Earth, although he himself did not complete the journey.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Born into a family of minor Portuguese nobility, Magellan became interested in exploration at a young age. He served the Portuguese crown in various capacities, including military campaigns in India and Africa, but later moved to Spain after a falling out with the Portuguese king. In service to Spain, he proposed an ambitious plan to reach the Spice Islands, now part of Indonesia, by sailing westward, not eastward, thereby circumventing Portuguese, his home country's controlled routes. He set sail in 1519 with a fleet of 5 ships, although he faced challenges including mutiny and severe navigational hurdles. Magellan successfully entered the Pacific Ocean by navigating through the strait that now bears his name at the southern tip of South America.
Right.
Magellan was killed then in the Philippines after going up and around South America during a skirmish with local tribes, never completing the circumnavigation himself. One of his ships, however, the Victoria, led by Juan Sebastian Elcano, returned to Spain in 1522, thus completing the first circumnavigation of the Earth. Only 18 of the original 270 crew members survived.
I was wondering that.
Hamish Ross is saying, I've always found it odd he is recognized as the first to circumnavigate when he did not. Only his surviving crew did. The historian that Dr. Hamish Ross is.
But he made it possible.
Yeah, he did. And Hamish in Auckland, New Zealand, where it's 08:29 in the morning. So this historic expedition took place in 1522. And on this day in history, the 6th of September, 1522, the Spanish expedition that was finally led by Juan Sebastian Elcano got back to Sevilla, got back to Spain without their captain. Took them 3 years, and they were the first crew to circumnavigate the globe. That's this day in history. Mark Holland is saying that today, 50 years ago, today, an event happened in Newport. Do you know what it was? 50 years ago today, which would have been what? 74. Is that right? Yeah, 74, 30 plus 20. That would have been somebody starting the trials or the America's Cup. Tell me, Mark. Tell us, Mark. 74 was courageous, installed the first. Oh, look at that. There is a hell of a stat. Look at this. Right. Hamish Ross will be interested in this. Courageous installed the first mini computer on an AC yacht. It was a Data General Nova 1200. Interesting. Andrew Pindar is suggesting that maybe the Magellan Strait should be renamed the Cruise Strait. Well, he got there. He led the thing, and the fact that he got killed, that's too bad. He did show getting to Indonesia and beyond to the west from Europe was possible. Those exploring captains are always being killed by natives. Yes, we know some others, don't we, Ted Ryman? Luca Craig. Hello, Luca, down in Auckland, replying to Gordon Smith. I roast coffee. It's an art combined with science. I'm using Dedi. Okay, now we've got Coffee Roasting Illustrated here today. Mm-hmm. Somebody asked if I had ever dipped my cojones into this. Never mind, Julia. You know there's an expression called teabagging, though.
Oh, is there?
There is. That is doing exactly that.
Oh. I don't know how I've lived without knowing that.
Julie, you got to know these things, especially since you live here in San Francisco. You got to know about teabagging. Oh. Who would have ever thought we'd talk about that on this show?
Never mind, go on.
Wake up. Julia, I am punchy. I'm sorry. I'm crotonic. Oh, God, Alan Long is saying. Okay, we're going to give our predictions here now in the America's Cup. Probably should have done that before now. Sad about the recent incident with Courageous and American Eagle at the Lord Mark. Yeah, I've got a copy of that protest decision. We're not really going to go into that until Kinky Illustrated. J. Frederick Bland is saying, yes, indeed. Nuts Illustrated, Graham Sweeney is saying. That computer, by the way, on Courageous, Mark Holland's reminding us that it logged wind speed, heel angle, calculated wind speed, SMG to windward, and printed it out on a mini strip plotter.
Wow.
Interesting. Hello, Castle Cove Sailing Club. Nice to have Castle Cove on here. Hamish Ross. I assume Castle Cove Sailing Club is Jon Emmett, or maybe somebody standing by with John.
Yep.
Ted Ryman, given how it turned out for the most of them, it was probably the correct response. Okay, let's get to our AC-37 Cup date. I'm going to start with a video that there was a lot of discussion in these watch parties, Julia. A lot of discussion about the crew, the fact there's only 8 on board. 4 of them we know are cyclists, but what are the other 4 doing? Mm-hmm. And there were a couple of videos that were popped up on my YouTube subscription list here in the last couple days, and I thought this was the best of the lot, courtesy of Ineos Britannia, explaining the crew positions. Mm-hmm.
So welcome on board the deck mock-up of RB3. So fundamentally, the AC-75 from the outside on a long shot will look much the same as it did in Auckland, but the deck layout, because of the cyclors and the reduction of crew, is going to look wildly different when we get those fantastic onboard shots. So one of the biggest things you'll notice on RB3 versus RB2 that we race in Auckland is that the helmsman / tactician is going to be in the most forward cockpit with a clear view forwards of the bow and able to match race perfectly. And everything in their cockpit has got to be perfectly designed for them. So everything is bespoke to those 2 guys, and making sure this thing is as comfortable as possible for them to sail, but also as functional as it can be for them to sail, so they can match race and read the wind and look at the other boat and get RB3 going as fast as possible. So moving one spot further back from the helm and our 2 pods in the middle of the boat. And for me, the biggest change in this cup cycle is we're no longer grinding with our arms, we're now cycling with our legs. So the 2 pods in the middle of the boat, 2 on the starboard side and 2 on the port side, are going to house our 4 cyclists that are going to power the boat. Now remember, everything below the waterline is powered by batteries, and all the power that the cyclists produce is going to move the sails. So this has been a big challenge for us at Ineos Britannia, fitting big 6-foot+ human beings. Everyone's between 90 and 100 kilos, so big lumps of human, into boxes, keeping them out out of the way of the wind and making sure it's a good environment for them to spit out lots of watts throughout a 20-25 minute America's Cup race. So I'm in the most aft cockpit now, and with this iteration of the America's Cup, as I've said, we've gone from 11 crew down to 8. So there's more jobs for the individual to take on, and I'm in a cockpit where our flight controller and trimmer will sit. So these guys back here are in a world where when they're on the leeward side of the boat, they're looking at the foil, looking at the displays and flying the boat perfectly over the water. And when they're on the windward side of the boat, they're in charge of the sail shapes and trimming the sails to make the boat go as fast as possible. We're in the second generation of an AC-75, and though it might look the same from the outside, things have changed beyond belief. We're in an aero world that we've never experienced in the America's Cup.
Okay, so that's obviously quite a bit different boat than what, for example, New York Yacht Club's American Magic are doing.
Mm.
Their helm is forward. They're right behind the helm is where they've got their trimmers / their secondary guys and flight controller. And then the cyclors are behind them facing aft.
I remember that.
And there was a lot of discussion yesterday about American Magic not having enough power because of the recumbent cyclors.
Mm-hmm.
That was the theory, that they don't have as much power. New York did that supposedly to reduce windage and hence get them down lower in the boat and hence be able to reduce the fairing of the cockpit shell around them.
Yeah.
And whether that was smart or not remains to be seen.
Yeah, they said that they had less power and energy that way, but do we know that?
Well, we don't know. There's a lot of speculation. I haven't seen New York say that in so few words. Hamish Ross is making the pithy point. How's that for alliteration? He's saying 24 total sailors. Okay, now there's really 48 sailors total in the boat. There's 6 teams of 8 sailors is 48, but what Hamish is saying, half of them are not sailors. Half of them are human batteries, are human hydraulic pumpers.
Yeah.
With their legs. And he said, when you get it down to only 24 actual sailors that are trimming sailors and doing work on sailing type work on yachts as opposed to just physical force work, that's just barely more than one IACC crew of 18.
Yeah.
And multiply, we had as many as 15 challengers and defenders. We have 13 I think in Valencia 07 in the IACC crews times nearly 20. So that's a lot. It's 200 and some odd sailors, right? 230, 40 sailors. So it is Hamish, as you say, it is a different world and rather different from what we're used to seeing in the America's Cup. Let's don't get into all of that because we're going to discuss that ad nauseum again, no doubt, tomorrow. And Gordon Smith will be in favor of the current cup, and Graham Sweeney and I will be grumpy and against it, and Ed Worley will be really against it, Julia. That's the way that worked out on the watch parties so far. Now a bit about umpiring, because that has come up, and we haven't talked about that much, but the umpires, there's a nice article on the America's Cup page about the umpires. Let me go back. Why didn't that? There it is. With the Louis Vuitton preliminary regatta in the opening days of the LVC revealing some ultra-close boat-on-boat action. From a spectator standpoint, understanding the nuances of the rules that govern these races has provided much debate. Foiling boats are fast, and we've seen speeds in excess of 50 knots at times, while the closing speeds of the AC-75s are just, frankly, puckering. They're astonishing, and they are. And if they're even if they're only each not going 50 knots, if they're each going 25 knots in closing, they're closing at 50 knots.
Yeah.
Which you know what it's like to run into a brick wall in a car or in a bicycle at 15 miles an hour. Yeah. 10 knots, 15 knots. So there would be, and God forbid, we don't have anything like that. But the umpires are no longer on the water. They haven't been for a few cups now. They're locked away in the television area, being provided multiple views of the action, and led by Richard Slater, my old friend from Australia, a hell of a good sailor, good judge, good umpire, and a rules advisor to, I guess we were on 3 teams together, I think. And he's mostly doing jury work these days, including as chief judge here at this cup. Let me go back. Why does that keep going forward? Richard Slater is the chief umpire for all the racing at the Louis Vuitton Cup, but also the America's Cup. And he is supported by a world-class and highly experienced team of umpires who are using some of the very latest digital technology to ensure that calls are both fair and consistent. Working shoreside, rather, Richard and his team have a huge variety of camera angles and digital overlays to make the calls. And we caught up with him to explain the key rules that you will hear a lot about during the racing. I'm not going to go into those now for obvious reasons. Most of you know those rules. There's only 4 basic rules. And again, I commend this article on the America's Cup website to you. It was a good article. I don't know if you saw it, Julia, but
I didn't read it.
a good article indeed. This is a shot, a view of Richard and one of his co-umpires there with the headsets on, where they're talking to each other. They're talking to the yachts if necessary. They're hearing the audio coming off the boats. They've got replay capabilities. You can see the overlays on a couple of the computers. And it's a cool setup. I've not actually seen it since when did I see that in action? 2013, I guess, was the first time it was actually done. 2013, there was also an umpire chasing around on a jet ski. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Trying to keep up with the action, and that's finally
Didn't work very well.
That didn't work. The poor guy got beaten. It was a former Navy SEAL, was one of the top guys doing that from down Newport Harbor. What's his first name? Mr. Blackman. He was my jeweler. He takes care of my Rolex watch. Every time there's a problem, we take it to Blackman's. And there's a plug in Newport Beach, California, Newport Harbor Yacht Club, longtime family, the Blackman family. So it's cool what they're doing in the booth. And I think their calls have been darn good, and they're still perfecting it. It gets better, led by Richard. It gets better with each cup. And I didn't like that tacking too close penalty the other day. But I thought the Kiwi should have been penalized, but apparently Richard was quite clear, and I didn't hear any teams bitching and moaning about it, including the Italians who got penalized coming out of that when the Kiwis tacked right in front of them. But and remember too that the America's Cup rules have been modified by mutual consent by all the team, agreement of the teams and the umpires, and they're different a bit, not much, but different a little bit from what we're used to, and simplified actually in some ways, from what we're used to using in our own match racing, indeed in our own fleet racing. Okay, let's go look at what's going on here. Yesterday, they used this race course, and that is widened. That was the first time the breeze was out of the south. There's the shoreline. This is the northeast coast of, we're on the western edge of the Mediterranean, obviously, where Barcelona is, but the breeze was coming out of the southeast yesterday for the first time, 170, 175. It may have touched 180, but they broadened the windward end of the track because it was really shifty, as the breeze is when it's southerly. It's steadier. It's more steady when it's coming from the east on shore. And it was really shifty, and there were lots of holes here in the track. It was a bit of a crap shoot day on the track yesterday. That resulted in these race wins and losses. American Magic barely beat the Brits, but did. It was the best race of the day. The first race, New York Yacht Club's American Magic beat Ineos Britannia. And then we're going to talk, I got some video from each of the teams about that. And then LRPP thrashed Orient Express Racing in the second race. Likewise, the Brits were thrashed by ETNZ in the third race. And then Alinghi and New York Yacht Club's American Magic, and those races are out of order on this graphic that was supplied by ACE, by America's Cup Events, because as you can see, race 20 was actually, I believe, from memory, was sailed up there earlier. And is that right? And then race 20, or did they put those out of order on purpose? I can't remember now. These days all flow into one. But regardless, the Alinghi Red Bull Racing beat American Magic, so they were 1-1 yesterday. They're not going to get eliminated. Probably it's going to be the French or the Swiss, but we'll talk some more about that in a moment. Craig Gordon. Hi, Craig Gordon. Long time. Hello, global sailing people. Love learning more about my favorite sport with each show. Well, thank you, Craig, for coming on. And please chip in because you know a lot about our beloved sport. Gordon Smith is saying that the Americans have a 10% reduction in power for the recumbent, aka reclining cyclor, which has been demonstrated in labs often. Okay. Jon Emmett is asking if he comes on tomorrow's Zoom, will I be outnumbered? By whom, John? Lots of comments. Boy, the comments are rolling in here. Baton Rouge down there. I tested the recumbent bike watt output versus an upright bike at my gym. Look at this, a FOSI. We got firsthand data. And I felt the recumbent was more comfortable to produce the same amount of wattage, maybe over less wattage, but over a longer period of time. This is not scientific, as the two bikes may not be calibrated together, but a fun discovery, I thought, and the trick to get myself on a bike. Mm-hmm. Okay, umpires have the toughest job in the America's Cup until cyclers, Graham Sweeney is asserting. Craig Mitchell is the Sail GP ump and a very fine bloke. He knows an awful lot about our sport. Who is Tiberius CX on YouTube? Could you drag your predictions for another 45 minutes? I'm out in 5 minutes, you long-winded bastard. Enjoy your dislike. Who is that? Nice, really nice comment, you know? I'm not dragging it out. We got to cover other things in our sport besides the Bloody America's Cup. Okay, we'll get to the predictions here in a moment, but we got some other videos.
Race day 6. First for us of the second round robin. Frustrating day for us. I was on the first race. Oh, well, to be honest, I'm head down in a dark box, so I haven't watched it back, so not entirely sure of exactly what happened. Obviously, super frustrating not to win, but made a really good fist of it, and the boat's clearly got some speed. And then against the Kiwis, I wasn't racing, but I was watching with the lads on one of the chase boats. Flavour of the day generally is we've got good speed, just need to tighten up on some of our manoeuvres, and that's our whole squad, like the guys with the dials and us firing the pumps. But it's got the Swiss, the Italians, and the Frenchies again. So yeah, just best foot forward, and we just got to string together some good sailing, and yeah, let's have it.
Okay, so that's from the British perspective after yesterday's racing. I still think, as any number of you know, this gentleman's got his hands full, and here this morning pops up another. He's got to promote one of his sponsors, Team Prince, and this is, okay, somebody wrote this quote for him and he had to approve it, but he's got to pay attention to this stuff. And he's pimping for Henry Lloyd, which is a fabulous company and a good sponsor, but it's just become another one of his many duties. And I think the poor guy's overwhelmed, which is why I still think he ought to get off the boat and let Giles Scott get on and see if they can improve their performance, which has been unsteady, to say the least. But you could also say that of the Americans and Tom Slingsby, and you could also say that in spades of the Swiss, to say nothing of the French. So I don't want to pick on Ben any more than I already have. The American side of the story.
American Magic crossed the line for the start of race 18 against Ineos Britannia.
Today we had two races, one against the British. That was a close race. We ended up just getting the win. Yes, we were actually a bit lucky we got a nice little shift right at the end of that race to pass them. We were ahead for most of the race, they passed us.
And the race for home begins.
and then we just got by at the end. In the second race against the Lingy, yeah, look, my hand's up. I got an entry penalty. Really frustrating. The software said we couldn't get there, and then all of a sudden it jumped and said we're early right at the last second. But I should have put more margin in there, and so that's frustrating. It's a penalty that I shouldn't have gotten. And then from there, yeah, we didn't sail a great race. Our manoeuvres weren't as good as they should be, and yeah, we've got plenty to work on.
Okay, so I thought those were interesting perspectives. It's nice to see a little behind the scenes action as well. And by the way, those of you who are worried about me getting to my predictions, I do things, I'm a simple country boy, Julia, as you know, and I do things alphabetically. All my files, everything's done alphabetically.
Yes.
Everything is done chronologically. We
Yes.
start with what has happened, what happened a couple days ago, and now we're getting to what's going to happen.
Okay.
And then we're going to talk about what's going to happen down the road. I mean, that's just the way these shows always
Yes.
work. As those of you who are regulars on here know, we're only 15 minutes into the show, so what's normally a 2-hour show? We're not padding this. We're not trying to drag people through this. Now, there is an interesting shot here with Paul Goodison, with Goody, who's, of course, a Brit. He's the B helm on American Magic. And this was from an ACE from one of the Magnificence, Magnus Wheatley's articles yesterday after the racing. A very different set of emotions, meaning vis-a-vis the other teams, emanated from New York Yacht Club American Magic Camp, with Paul Goodison clearly not happy with the performance on the water despite the narrow win against Britannia, against Ineos, saying, quote, "It literally feels like I've done 10 rounds with Mike Tyson. I feel like we had the 7 bells knocked out of us." Is that a British expression? What's that mean, the 7 bells?
I don't know.
Do you know that expression, Julia?
Eight bells is
Well, that's
the
when
final.
that's when it's really been knocked out of you.
I know.
That's when you're off watch
Maybe
for
7.
good. But I don't. Somebody explained this British, I guess, a British expression: 7 bells knocked out of us. But the good news is that we got another point on the board, and we got plenty of lessons that we can take from today to move forward. But it has been a frustrating day. We weren't maneuvering as well as we normally do. And the worst bit is that we couldn't quite put our finger on how to fix it. That's a pretty frank admission, I think, of what's going on maybe in their camp. They don't know what's going on in the light and flat. We'll come back to that, and Gordon Smith and I have been discussing that. We stayed out a little bit afterwards and collected some more data, and it's going to be a long night sifting through that to try to figure out what was different today. We just have to take those lessons and move forward. And again, that was Magnus Wheatley writing on americascup.com. 7 bells out in British English, or knock 7 bells out of British informal, to give a severe beating to. It takes American James Frederick Bland to explain that to us. Sweeney saying 7 bottles of whiskey. Julie Aarons does it out of the 8 that can kill you. 7 rounds of a boxing match, Emmett is saying. Okay, well, it sounds like it's vernacular, maybe coming out of boxing.
Yeah, 7 bells is being in the state of 1 short of 8 bells.
Yeah, well, exactly. Okay, so here now is a video out of the Kiwi camp after yesterday's racing, which they won both.
Yeah, great to be back out there. 2 races, very dynamic conditions, more dynamic than what we were expecting when we headed out there this morning. So first takeoff I think we've had to do in a race so far. It's good to get one of those out of the way, I guess you could say, but really tricky, and a lot of big lulls out there, and it was really difficult maneuvering if you did find yourself stuck in one of those. I mean, these races are invaluable for us. We've only got a couple left to go, and then it's going to be a big break before we get into the real thing. So for us, we're taking as much as we can from these races and learning as much as we can.
Cool, calm, collected, not too fussed. They know in the backs of their heads, maybe in the fronts of their minds, they know they got a leg up on the rest of the competition, or apparently do, at least in this condition.
Yes.
Light air, flat water, and I want to come back to that because several of you thought, including Gordon Smith, that the American Magic's condition was light air, flat water. And I've been arguing a little bit in these watch parties with Gordon. I think New York Yacht Club, remember they beat the Kiwis in breeze and lump in that preliminary regatta. And I think New York Yacht Club's condition, maybe, the pundits notwithstanding, that New York Yacht Club's condition, our ideal condition, is lumpy. And we'll see if we get some lump. And depending upon the weather, this thing is perhaps more weather dependent than ever. But as Ed Worley just said in the comments, crew air seems to be as important or more important or prevalent, having a more direct impact on the outcome of the racing than boat speed. And there are others saying the same thing, including Richard Gladwell in his piece last night on sail-world.com. He calls himself this Cup Spy, or his series of articles, which have been superb. Louis Vuitton Cup Day 6, the agony and the ecstasy of yesterday's racing. And Richard says, and I excerpt from a long article, if the semifinals are sailed in fresher breezes, which arrived on Friday, that's today, but there's no racing, as you all know, or was no racing, then a team which was looking very ordinary in the round robin could rise up and give a nasty bite in the hiney, I guess he means.
In the semis.
In the semis. It has to be said that the AC-75s all look very closely matched in boat speed. The short legs, usually of only 1 to 1.5 nautical miles, take 3 minutes or so to complete. Only. I think that he means only. The days of the 2007 America's Cup are gone, long gone, where the two competitors sailed 2 long tacks of around 7 minutes each. He means to get to the top mark.
Yeah.
At the conclusion of that arm wrestle, one might have picked up an advantage of a boat length to take into the final couple of tacks for the first mark, and a 90% chance of winning the race if you were leading at the first mark. But it was that creepy crawly, very tough, inch by inch, half a boat length, meter by meter, gain and loss, or a little bit of a lift, or a little more pressure out to one side, especially if the boats were close together. If they split, okay, it was a different deal. But slower boats tend to be closer racing because fast boats get far apart, and then, of course, they fall off the foils, and God knows anything can happen. So Richard goes on to say, the fundamental difference between this Cup and 2007 is that most, if not all, of the race losses are self-inflicted injuries.
That's interesting.
Saying what Ed Worley said a minute ago in the comments, and not the result of some fine point needlework from the 30-strong design teams with all their technology partners, supercomputers, artificial intelligence, performance simulators, and rules arguments over the thickness of a boundary layer. What do you think of that, Julia?
I think that's probably absolutely right.
Do you like his prose?
I do.
He's right up there with Magnus the Magnificent.
I was thinking that sounded like Magnus.
It's not. It's Richard Gladwell. The formula, this is his conclusion. Again, this is excerpts from a long article. The formula performance equals potential, the formula, performance equals potential minus mistakes, has never been more accurate than in this regatta. As they say, despite appearances on the leaderboard, there is still, I've never heard this expression, but I'll take his word for it, there's still plenty of golf left in this hole. Okay. Tomorrow, which looks to have the best breeze of the week, is a no race day, meaning today, Friday. For several teams, Friday will be a day of deep thought as the performance analysts, some would say analysts, pore over their race data and that available of their competitors to come up with some answers. There are not many sleeps left until Sunday, when the first team is eliminated from the competition. And of course, they've only been racing for, a handful of weeks, 3+ weeks. Time is of the essence, as it always is in the America's Cup. And we've had that discussion, Julie, any number of times on here, that the America's Cup is like and why they call these campaigns, they're like a political campaign.
Yes.
You got X amount of time and it's limited. It's the one thing you cannot buy more of which you cannot buy more.
Thank you.
You grammarian. God, you're worse than my mother. I can see your eyes going, oh, you're going to say it. You're going to say it wrong. Okay, that's Richard Gladwell writing on sail-world.com. Okay, so all of that, now that we've reviewed yesterday, Julie Aaron's saying, remember that Gladwell is also a writer by trade and been in that game for a very long time and is also a sailor. Yes, Julie, and also a judge and an umpire. Good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Good guy. Any other comments? J. Frederick Bland, one bad tack has always decided the winners. Well, not necessarily in the 12-meter days or the IACC days. It didn't help if you lost a half a boat length coming out of a bad tack. Fair enough. So we shall see. We shall see. But here then are the results coming out of yesterday. Among the challenges, I don't even pay any attention to the Kiwis, really. LRPP is on 5 wins. They're undefeated, 5 wins and no losses. Bravo, Zulu, to them. Impressive. No surprise to most of the keen observers of this cycle, the 37th edition of the Cup. Ineos Britannia on 3 wins, but only 2 losses because they've sailed one less race than the others. American Magic on 3 and 3. Olingi on 2 and 4. And Orient Express, the French team, of course, on 1 and 5. So, Julia, how about some predictions?
I'm looking at Ed Worley's comment. It is not interesting to watch a boat belly flop and fall so far behind that the race is over.
Indeed. Blake Middleton is reminding me that my late great mother and Julia are both right. Yes, I do. I know that. And I'm a simple country boy who went to a public university, a good public high school. But you know, Blake, I'm not like you who went and coached. He coached at Stanford. He probably, by osmosis, picked up some of that knowledge that you fancy people got at these high-powered private universities like Stanford. Okay, let's get to the predictions here. Who goes home next week? Maybe as early as Monday. If they get all the racing in, it's over on Sunday. Who goes home? I ask all of you. In fact, Jon Emmett's already put his list up. He's saying NZLITA USA, GBR, SUIFRA. Who goes home after this round robin 2 is completed? There are reserve days next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in case they lose racing this weekend. They may not get any racing in tomorrow. The forecast is not auspicious. Who's Rain Man? We got Rain Man on here. France. J. Frederick Bland is saying, Julie Aarons, I'm sad for the French, but I wish it was going to be the Swiss. She does not like Ernesto Bertorelli. Jody Shields. By the way, I woke up at dark 30 this morning, and I had a text, Julia, from Jody Shields, who seems like he's been constantly on vacation.
Yeah, I know.
He's now off at some fancy yacht club in some nice resort area up in the Whitsundays. I think he's at the Whitsunday Island Yacht Club or something. And he takes a picture up on a monitor on their television screen.
Yeah.
And it's one of our old shows that's airing.
Ah.
And I said, who is that crouton, Jody? And this is at 3 a.m. And he said, can't you tell? And I didn't want to make any noise on my phone, so I couldn't play in case it woke you up upstairs up in the Commodore's quarters.
I heard you.
And it made a hell of a noise. It came on loud. I thought I'd turn the volume down. I had au revoir, au revoir. How do you say that in French, Julia?
See you later.
Yeah, I know what it means. How do you say it?
Oh.
Au revoir?
Au revoir.
Okay. So good for Jody. Alan Long is saying, the guy, bravo Zulu to him. Who goes home? Well, here are my predictions. I'm trying to be a little more granular than that. I'm not dragging this out. I'm just trying to give you the basis for why I think it's going to come the way it is in the remaining LVC round robin races. Tomorrow, in these 5 scheduled matches, they're either going to happen tomorrow or Sunday or maybe Monday if they bleed over to Monday. I think the Italians, sorry, friends in New York Yacht Club and New York Yacht Club's American Magic, I think the Italians will win tomorrow's first scheduled race. I think the Swiss will win the next race. Sorry, Brits. I know a lot of you on here aren't going to be happy about it. I think the Italians, Julia, are on the rise. Several comments have said the same thing. I think they are, they're a very young sailing team. They've had very little time in the America's Cup. Forget about the boats, but because, they've also had limited time, but so have the other crews. They are a young sailing team on this huge America's Cup stage now for the first time. Arnaud Saraphagas. I think the kid's coming good. I think the rest of the team is coming good. I think their technical team, which is very strong, is coming good. And I think they're coming good.
I've always felt sorry for him. This is what, his 7th America's.
No, that's Bertarelli.
Oh, that's Bertarelli.
This is Bertelli. Or sorry, that's Bertelli. This is Ernesto Bertarelli from Switzerland. This is only this is only his 03 they won the first time out. Yeah. 07 they won. 010 they lost and he dropped out. And now he's back in it. So this is his fourth challenge. And of course, fourth time in the Cup, third challenge. Mm-hmm. No, second challenge. And we'll see. That's Ernesto Bertarelli, the Swiss gentleman who's obviously of an Italian heritage, an Italian family. But you're thinking of Patrizio Bertelli,
yes,
who's the head of Prada, and this is his 7th challenge, and all for naught so far, but we'll see. So that's my prediction so far. I think the Americans will beat the French. I don't care about this next race. I don't even rank it. I think the Kiwis will beat the Swiss. That's a no-brainer, I think. Will the Swiss even show up to the starting line? Who knows? And I think the Italians tomorrow will beat the Brits. That's my estimation. Again, given the conditions, the very light air conditions, I think that's what we will see, Julia, tomorrow. Do you beg to differ with any of those predictions?
Nope.
I mean, you could argue about the first one with the Americans and the Italians.
I don't like all of those results, but I think it's likely.
LRPP, Ed Worley is saying, is really in the groove. The song, I see a red moon rising. I see trouble on the way. You remember who sang that song, Julia?
No.
What was that? Creedence Clearwater, was that CCR? Graham Sweeney? GBR to beat SUI. Yeah, you could argue about that too, Julie. Who is that?
Jon Emmett.
Jon Emmett. Yeah, you could argue about that call on my part, but I think given the light air and the problems that Ben is having and the ascendancy, how's that for a good Sanford word, Julia? I think the ascendancy of the Swiss, I think that's the results tomorrow. Let's go on to Sunday. I think the Brits will beat the French. I think the Italians will beat the Swiss and end the rounds robin undefeated. Mm-hmm. And I don't care about the final match, although the Americans did beat the Kiwis in that preliminary regatta, and maybe they will do so again on Sunday if there's breeze and if there's lump. That's my feeling currently. And I'm not just looking at the results. I'm talking to a lot of people, as you all know, and of course a lot of you are as well. Now here is my chart prepared yesterday. So far, there are the results. As we saw a minute ago, 5-0 down to 1 win, 5 losses. And there is my prediction you just saw on that previous slide. I think the Italians continue to go undefeated, end up 8-0. I think you combine my scores to the Brits already so far scores, they end up 4-4. The Americans also end up 4-4. The Swiss end up 3-5. And the French, as I think most of you are also in agreement, I think they just are having too many problems with that boat. They are a day late and $1 short, we've been saying for months. And I think they will end up 1-7. And they're the team, therefore, Julia, that will go home. But equally importantly, the Italians will end up on top because why? That gives them the choice of their semifinal opponent.
Well, who are they going to choose?
Well, we're coming to that. I'm going to even make a prediction on that.
Okay.
You'd think poorly of me if I didn't. Graham Sweeney disagrees. He thinks that Luna Rossa tomorrow will get its first loss, maybe. I mean, anything's possible. Anything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Selwyn. Hi, Peter. If Great Britain beats SUI and FRA, take one, then they're both on 2-6. What happens then? If there is a tie, they have a race-off on Monday. If there's a tie, it doesn't matter who beat who, it doesn't mean if the record is the same. If this chart you're seeing above here, if the Swiss and the French somehow end up tied, and you know, they even, I don't think there's going to be a tie otherwise. The Americans, they've only got, well, there could be theoretically, mathematically, some other teams tied with either the in the bottom besides the Swiss and the French. Not likely. So there is a sail-off if there's a tie between the Swiss and the French. And that sail-off would presumably be Monday. That's up to Ian Murray, the regatta director, but we'll see. Gordon Smith already thinking that ITA will choose Ineos. We'll see about that, at least in my prediction. Jon Emmett thinks they'll choose the Swiss. Any other comments? Tomorrow you will see what going back up. Yeah, USA and ITA should be a great race tomorrow, Jon Emmett. I agree with you on that. Someone needs to beat those pesky Italians. Chris Exley is saying, yeah, we all like to see that. So I think the French are going home, sadly, tomorrow. But no surprise, they've come in, again, a day late and a dollar short. They got a design package from the Kiwis and not much time to really optimize it on their own. And their sailing team, although pretty good, you know, they've been up and down in Sail GP. It's basically the Sail GP sailing team. They're just, again, a bit deer in the headlights, I think, the way the Swiss team is as well. And it's hard for any of us to underestimate or to understand the pressure of appearing on this stage, all the television, all the interviews, all the people looking in, the people in Switzerland and France looking in. I don't know if those of you who get Tip and Shaft, that Friday newsletter that comes out from France, it came out this morning, barely even covered the America's Cup, and they have, it seems like they have already concluded that the French, and that's a French publication, that they're going home. Okay, so now let's get to the ITALs. Assuming LRPP do win, I love this photo. Who do they choose for their semifinal opponent? Some of you think they're going to choose the Brits. I doubt it. I mean, the psychology of this, Julia, we've talked about it, and some people have said, oh, if whoever out of these 2 days of racing appears to be the strongest, choose them now, pounce on them in the semifinal, get them, and just show them that you can't es mas macho, we're better than you, we're going to pounce on you, and choose the strongest, you're the apparent strongest, or whom you perceive to be the strongest, or choose the team that you've had the best record against. I've seen that come back in the America's Cup and in other match racing events, come back and bite you right squarely in the Batinsky. So I just, first place chooses fourth. I think that's the call, Jon Emmett. Coach Emmett agrees. And I therefore do think that they're going to choose who I believe will be the fourth place boat. That is Red Bull, Alinghi Red Bull Racing. I think they're going to end up fourth in that chart we just showed you. They are inconsistent. They've been up and down. Yes, maybe they're a bit on the rise, which may be another reason to get them and eliminate them before they get too strong, before they get too good. And I think they will be the least experienced sailing team of the four going forward.
And Ed Worley reminds us that the French will train with New Zealand.
Probably that helps the Kiwis.
Yeah.
P. Blake in New Zealand, or is he in Aussie? I can't remember now. If French can get their skills together, with wind light and patchy, a chance against the Yanks and the Brits. Yeah, maybe. I mean, anything could happen in a light, patchy day, and that's basically the forecast. We'll show it to you in a moment. Alex Hayworth, Luna will choose American Magic. It's a series against one, but yes, and that's a good point. It does change. Things change. as soon as you get into a knockout match where it's racing the same team day after day after day.
Yeah.
So that does change. But again, Alex, to me, that's all the more reason why you want to get the weakest team, give yourself the chance to build that yourself up, get them knocked out, watch the other, and hopefully get them knocked out early, spend plenty of time watching the other semifinal, and then you'll be racing, obviously, the winner of that other semi. But Alex disagrees. See, it's a series against one boat, therefore hydro problem is a major, or hydropower, I think he means, is a major problem for American Magic. Luna will not choose their friend Zalingi. Yeah, okay. I'm not so sure I agree with that. In fact, I'm quite sure I don't. Rick Banro, the longer teams hang around, the better the chance of finding lightning in a bottle. Who sang that song? Lightning in a bottle.
I don't know.
They'll squash the bug before they learn how to sting. I agree with Rick. Don't start by, as Dennis Conner used to say, tear the neck of the head of the snake off once you got it by its neck. Don't start by making your bones against the weakest team. Luca Craig, amazing how there are 3 Aussie sailors on the handlebars of the 6 teams. Handlebars meaning the steering wheel, not the cyclors. Alinghi chose Oracle in 03, had to beat them at some stage, may as well be now sent to reps. Yeah, they look at the weather forecast before deciding. If really light, they might choose to take advantage of AM's lack of power on a light day. That's an interesting point, Peter Selwyn. I think that's a valid point. I want to see American Magic face Italy for the LV final, I think Julie is saying. The Police, Stingo.
Yeah.
Message in a bottle.
I missed that.
Okay, that's my prediction. There they are. Now, I ask you who wins that semi. There's no doubt, I'm sure, in any of your minds, certainly very few of your minds, that it will be LRPP. Now, what is that score? I hope I'll write this down. You can all hold me to this. Julia, what is the score of that semifinal? Its first to win 5. Will it be 5-0?
I don't think so.
You think Lingy will get 1 race?
Yeah.
I do too. I agree. I think Alinghi will get 1 race off them. There's just enough, and we've seen LRPP struggle at times. So I agree with you. I'm saying 5-1. J. Frederick Bland thinks it's going to be closer. James is saying 3-2. I'm going to call it 5-1, and Julie Aaron saying 4-2. So we're a bit all over the map here. I hope Clark Chapin is writing these other ones down, because it will be interesting to see on this particular scoreline, I think. Now, how about the other semi? Julia, what's your prediction in the other semi, assuming it's the Americans against the Brits? First of all, who wins it?
Well, I have to go with Hart this time.
You have to go with the Hart. Yeah, but what if it is light and shitterly and they continue to have oil problems, hydraulic problems?
I know, but
Gordon Smith says at that point he would choose the team with the. Well, they may be tied coming out of the rounds robin. They may be tied coming out of the rounds robin. I think the Americans are going to get better. I think they have a great analytical team. I think Tom Slingsby. I agree with Julie Aarons. I think he's one of the best sailors in the world at this point, if not the best. I mean, Pete Burling's obviously pretty good. Jimmy Spithill's pretty good, although he's getting a little old. But, you know, things, you think I'm going to joke here, or that I am joking, but, you know, people get married. People have a kid, and their life changes, and their focus changes, even one little iota.
Yeah.
And Tommy Slingsby has gotten married, and he's got a kid. Either have they had the kid, or it's in the oven? So, you know, Slingsby has maybe been struggling. Now maybe he gets focused if he gets into the semis. Maybe they're holding their cards close to their chests. I don't think so. They're making some dumb mistakes, there's no question. And maybe they got a cycling problem.
I think that's basically a problem.
Tom Pace says baby boy. Has the baby been born?
I think so.
They all have kids, same with Blair. Yeah, but it's different when you're just having it. I can say from experience. as many of you can as well. Okay. I think the Americans will win. I think they're coming on strong. I think they'll sort out their problems. I think Tom will stop starting like a crouton, at least against Ben. I don't think Ben will get off the boat, which is still what I think he should do. And it's a little late now. I agree with all the rest of you who think it's too late. I think it's probably a little too late. But despite the Americans having their ups and downs so far.
I worry about that for everybody, really. It's just...
Well,
right.
you have to. But what about the Americans, Julia? You think that you're going with your heart, not your brain. Do you think if you went with your brain, it would be the Brits?
Well, it should be.
Why should it be? The
I don't
Brits
know.
aren't sailing very well. They got beaten again yesterday by the Americans.
Yeah.
I think the Americans they'll come good.
I stay with Americans.
Yeah, and I think, though, it'll be a closer series. I think it'll be 5-2. This one even may be 4-3. This may be 4-3. Alan Long is saying, good point, though. Good point. Okay, so now we've got two finalists. If you buy any or all of that, we got two finalists. Who wins the LV Cup final? And I think, again, most punters are saying it will be the Italians. It will be LRPP against NYAM. And I'm not going to make a prediction or ask any of you to make a prediction yet, because frankly, I think, Julie, we got to see
the
weather prediction.
Yeah.
We got to see the wind in the sea state. I think if it's downrange, if it's light, the Italians are going to win. If it's uprange, despite what some of the talking heads have been saying heretofore, and I've been arguing this politely with Gordon Smith, and he politely with me, I think New York Yacht Club American Magic's sweet spot is uprange, but particularly in the bobble, in the lump. If it gets bumpy again, if it comes around out of the southeast or east, and it's blowing up against that breakwater and coming out onto the racetrack, and you get a confused sea state, if you get a meter or more of sea, I think American Magic's pretty well attuned foil-wise and rudder-wise and hull under the body. I think. We'll see. Gordon Smith is calling it LRPP versus Ineos. Jon Emmett thinks the Brits are improving fast. Is it fast enough? Julie Ahrens thinks Slingsby is better. He thinks he's better than Spithill. She does. Jimmy has lost his fire except for starting skill. The Brits are awful. Okay, I love that Julie is willing to get on here, Julia, and not be a rubber dick, as we used to say.
Yes.
That's an Australian expression. You can shake your finger at me too, but that is an expression in the America's Cup which goes way back. Those of you who've been involved in the Cup, including Ed Worley, will confirm that. Yes, American Magic looks like a missile in winds above 10 or 12. Stingrays comment. AM will be a belly slapper in a decent swell. I don't think so, Gordon. I don't think so, but maybe. In any event, my crystal ball at this point gets cloudy, notwithstanding all the discussion earlier in the show, Julia.
I know.
But it's cloudy, and it was not clear. I did check it this morning. I checked all the crystal balls this morning. Come on, I couldn't help it. And it's cloudy. And again, I think until we see the wind and sea conditions, I think it is really the outcome is wind and sea dependent. We'll see. What do the rest of you think? Luca Craig in Auckland thinks if the wind and sea state is predicted to be a certain amount, can they change the foils? No, they cannot. They're locked into their foils, what they've brung to the party now. There's a 20% change they can make in I think in the foils, but maybe even that now doesn't happen. I have to get somebody who is Hamish Ross is on here. Maybe he's consulted he's probably just can't be bothered because he's so upset that this event has gone to Barcelona.
As he should be.
What does rubber duck mean, Julie Ahrens? Yes, thank you for cleaning up my act. Glad Tom has crystal balls. I don't. Gordon Smith is saying, oh my God, it's one of those shows, Julia. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about the TV. I could have done the TV before, but I didn't want Tiberius to get mad at me for holding on. I think they've done a great job. I do think the audio coming off the boats has been way too loud. I wish they'd tone that down because it's not very useful. We've said that on the watch parties. I wish they would put more wind information more regularly on the screen, but they've got a great team. I checked into the team a fair bit, and they've got a really, really good team of guys and companies and gals that are putting on this telecast. The vision has been good. And this is a release from a company, an article actually called SVG News in Europe, which I came across this morning. And they're quite an interesting company that it's actually a .org. It's an organization that brings together production companies and helps them all improve their business. A host of production innovations, they say, have been introduced for the 37th America's Cup, including UHD, that's ultra high def, that means 4K. HDR, which is another technical high-end. We do HDR sometimes here in the studio, but we've not done 4K. Jon Emmett does. Coverage of the sailing competition, which is taking place in Barcelona and will culminate in the LV America's Cup match starting on the 12th of October, following a series of preliminary rounds, which began 22nd August, is being led by an in-house team and delivered by a new consortium of broadcast production companies. Quote, we'll debut a new innovative graphics techniques in Barcelona produced in UHD, ultra high def, meaning 4K, and tell all the stories of the Cup. So wherever you are in the world, find the largest, most convenient screen possible, and you'll be in for a visual treat, said Leon Sefton, who's a Kiwi and a superb television guy, the director of production, what we might call the executive producer of this telecast, of this broadcast. Some of the production innovations, including filming in UHD, HDR, HLG 2020, and surround sound audio, big deal, both first for the America's Cup to bring viewers as close to the action as
I think that's
possible. Yeah, it is. It is indeed. That's George Bevan of this SVGEurope.org. He is the executive editor of their newsletter and so on of that organization. There are constant complaints, and this is pointed out by Richard Gladwell, and we traded emails this morning. This is from the Virtual Eye Company, ARL, down in Dunedin in New Zealand, who is doing the graphics again. And they've been doing America's Cup graphics on and off for quite some time. Very good company. And look at all the wind that is available if you go into the ARL graphics. And if you go in to look at Richard's article from this morning, there's a link, and I'm sorry I didn't include it here. And you can go into the ARL graphics after the fact, after the race. And you too can see all this data. The teams do it as well. Look at all that wind data.
Wow.
8 knots here, 6 knots there. 8 knots here, and the direction, 164, 173. Here at the, I guess that's the down, I don't know what that is, couple boats on the track. Here's the start-finish line, I guess. Here's the windward gate. And why that data or some of that data isn't, not sometimes it appears, but why it's not being more consistently shown is beyond me. It's I don't understand it. Richard doesn't understand it. And with all that data available, we were asking, and Richard was asking himself in an article he published, why so little weather data on the broadcast? And lots of other people are saying the same thing. We're saying it in these
It'd be almost better
morning
to say, just show it on the screen and not have it on the boats.
Well, the boats they've got access to it after the fact as well. They've got their own weather data. They can't get outside assistance. But why so little weather data? Well, Richard sent me an email and he said I could quote it. He said the point is that there are plenty of wind readings available, but they just don't get shown. Instead, we get this AI with the colored surface of the water because of a deal they have done with Capgemini. But without the real wind, we can't see why these boats are falling off the foils, whether it's because of lack of wind, crew ineptitude, or cyclors getting exhausted.
Or all three.
Or all of the above, which I thought was spot on.
Yes.
And that was an email this morning Richard's probably asleep now. I don't see him on here. Well, no, it's 9:30. Well, he stays up half the night. It's only 9:30 in the morning down there on Saturday morning. He went on to say, after Marseille and now Barcelona, the message should have got out about having big regattas in the Med. Why on earth would you choose Marseille for the Olympics? Well, we know why. Politically, they were forced to do it by the central government in France, keeping the socialists and the south of France happy down there in Marseille. Why did they choose Barcelona? Follow the money. We know Grant Dalton wins. Sorry, Julie Aarons. Because we know he got a big venue fee, and the same reason that Russell and Larry went to Bermuda, $70 million venue fee to help run the regatta, and their team, their defense team. That's Richard Gladwell in a private email to me from which he said I could excerpt. He gave me explicit permission to do that. Jon Emmett is saying, yeah, the Med is okay in April. Location, follow the money. Marseille was also Mrs. Macron. I didn't know that, Alex Hayworth. Smart, FOSI. Was Mrs. Macron, President Macron's hometown. Okay.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either, but again, what sharp people. I think the producers of the cup races do not want to get too technical, and we are trying to make sailing entertaining, and not confuse non-sailors. You think, Ed? I'm not sure about that. I mean, again, we talk about that here, and we talk about it in Sail GP, we talk about it. You can do these watch parties that we're doing, and they're plenty technical because we got a bunch of good sailors coming on. Hell, you had Bruce Nelson coming on the other morning and opining, technical director for a couple of America's Cup teams, naval architect par excellence, superb sailor, to say nothing having gone to the University of Michigan. And people like that among the others that are coming on by Zoom, the Zoomers. So there's plenty of expertise, and we managed to do it and also explain it, I think, in a simple way for non-sailors. At least we're getting hundreds and thousands, in fact, of views and lots of comments. So,
yeah, one would think that would be a lesson for major broadcasters too, because especially in a lesser known sport.
Well, but look, I don't know cricket until I moved to New Zealand and Australia. You know, spent time in those two countries.
I still don't know it.
Well, but you see it, you learn it by osmosis, by friends explaining it, by going and watching it. You know, you go to a cricket, what do they call it, a match, or whatever they call it, with Peter Mont commentary with Montgomery, and he explains it, or any of your other friends watching it on the tube, who are Kiwis or Aussies or Brits or Indians or
7-year-old explained it to me best.
Well, you start to get it, and it's the same with American football. You watch it a little bit, you can start to understand American baseball, bloody soccer. I mean, that's an easy game to understand. Football, soccer. Sailors don't complain about the weather, they adjust their sails. They dumb it down for the non-sailors. That's why they have Steve on commentary. He's pretty dumb. That's Australian. Andrew Davola talking about Steve McIver. Wow, the comments are rolling in now. I can't keep up with them. Test cricket is great. There's a South African. Or rugby. I mean, it doesn't take long. And you learn it. You figure it out. And part of the fun of watching it is learning some of the nuance.
That's true.
And the same with our sport, right, Julia?
Absolutely.
I mean, you become a bloody expert sitting over here at your desk watching these shows and hearing all this gas bagging that we go through in the cup. Okay, let's wrap up the cup segment. We're an hour and 34 minutes into that. And I got to have some breakfast and then a nap, as you probably all can tell. That's the schedule. We are about at the end of the round-robin phase. We're about to get rid of the Kiwis out of the racing. They go away. The 4 semifinalists go forward. And the semis start a week from tomorrow already on the 14th of September. There's very little time off, especially if they end up using any of these reserve days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, to wrap up the rounds robin. Then the finals for the LVC start on the 26th of September, as you can see. And then the match itself, that is, we call it the match, it's the finals, which is the name of a bar not too far from us, Julia. It used to be. It burned down. Through the 12th through the 21st of October is the scheduled period. So later in October. And by the way, Any of you who've ever sailed in Barcelona, lived in Barcelona, or looked at the weather forecast can see that the breeze goes downhill from here. Okay, there can be some bumps, and there can be, and again, we said on the watch party yesterday, one hears, one, I'm told that in the western end of the Med at least, maybe in the Med in general, but the Med is apparently 2 or 3 or 4 degrees Celsius warmer than it was last year at this time. And that's contributing to the lighter air. Any other comments? Alex Hayward says, Daltz does not do nuance, just big fat checks from Jeddah. Yeah, Jon Emmett can tell you about racing in, what time of the year did you race the Oka Worlds, John, in Barcelona? Because you were starting very early.
Early starts, yeah.
And then it's racing late at night. It was on and on. Alan Long wants to talk about his hometown of Cleveland. Okay, Bravo Zulu, we'll talk about Cleveland. Bravo Zulu to Cleveland. And Alan Long, thank you for sending this along. See what I did there, Julia?
Yeah.
This announcement, okay, we've spilled the beans. You can tell, I'm sure, that is Cleveland. And look at that. We talk about all the yacht clubs. In fact, they're not even, the yacht clubs we talk about aren't even featured on this map. But Lakeside Yacht Club, Forest City Yacht Club, then this East 55th Street Marina we're talking about in a moment, which is a public park there in Cleveland, right on the waterfront, obviously. And then up at the Intercity Yacht Club, and there are the other 3 bigger, more active yacht racing clubs, in fact, the Cleveland Yachting Club, which is to the west in Rocky River, Edgewater Yacht Club, which is right downtown in Cleveland, and Alan Long's home club to the east, up to the east, northeast a little bit on the south shore of Lake Erie, called the Mentor Harbor Yachting Club.
Ah, yes.
Mentor Harbor. And where's your hat, Julia? Did you bring it down?
I didn't.
Huh?
I didn't.
I got my back to the camera, Julia.
Uh-oh.
I've got another cap. You can put it on. You can put on the red cap. You got your headset on, you can't,
Yeah.
so I'll put it on.
Yeah.
The Mentor Harbor Yachting Club in Cleveland while we do this segment. And what is it? Well, in Cleveland, Ohio, on Lake Erie, there is a new spectacular looking community sailing center, which was announced yesterday. Cleveland Metro Parks and their partners announced a world-class community sailing center.
Wow.
Look at that.
Look at that.
The Patrick S. Parker Community Sailing Center was announced yesterday, and a world-class community center coming to the East 55th Street Marina in Cleveland. The sailing center will be the first of its kind along Lake Erie in Ohio. It's probably the first of its kind in all of the Great Lakes, providing unprecedented public access and sailing opportunities to the region through the major support of project partners, including Parker Hannafin and Madeline Parker and Jack Joseph and on, in the Cleveland Foundry. So that is fantastic news. I'll paraphrase this. The Sailing Center will host year-round STEM programming, science, technology, engineering, and math, right? Isn't that what STEM stands for?
Yep.
I only went to Michigan. I didn't go to Stanford.
Well, you know the basics.
Programming for schools and community partnership organizations under cooperation with all these organizations. That offer boating, Ohio boating safety and education classes and water safety certification. Not a single mention of U.S. sailing in there anywhere. As I come back to camera one with my Mentor Harbor Yachting cap on. Nice stuff. Alan Long, thank you for sending that along. Bravo Zulu to everybody in Cleveland. Julie Aarons, Alan Long, and any of the others of you. My hat's off to you and those major yacht clubs and the entire community for what's appears to be a terrific sailing center. Graham Sweeney says it looks like a police headquarters. Julie Aarons, who's there in Cleveland, learn more about sailing from doing it and more by watching and listening to good commentary. By the way, there is a lot to be said for Mozzie. Yes, Tom Morris, Mozzie Sails. We watch his YouTube channel, although he does get off sometimes on tangents, as we do here.
I was going to say.
As we do here.
Absolutely.
Lake Erie, isn't that the Canadian lake, Gordon Smith is saying? Come on, it's split between the U.S. and Canada, as is Lake Ontario, as is Lake Huron, and as is Lake Superior, right? Lake Superior as well. Mm. Lake Michigan's the only lake that is fully in the United States.
Is it?
Yes. Even Lake St. Clair, the little lake there in the front on the city front in Detroit, is split between Canada. Oh, Canada!
Okay.
and the United States. I, having grown up there, of course,
Yes.
in Michigan, and sailed on Lake St. all those lakes a fair bit. Okay, finally, after all of our predictions, Julia, we are to the last leg, and let's get to something local here because we've got coming up the Rolex Big Boat Series starting next week here in San Francisco. It's the 60th edition of this event, started back in the 64, and it used to be really big boats. And as Andrew McIrvin said on the show, and thanks again, Andrew, for coming on. He's probably down in Puerto Cerro now, but thanks for coming on Tuesday's show and previewing the Maxi World Cup, which starts, tomorrow in Puerto Cerro. And it used to be bigger boats, but now it's a lot of one design racing, a lot of J boats, J105s and others, but also a lot of now classic yachts. And that part of this thing, of the Big Boat Series, is growing. And here is a terrific promo video courtesy of Rolex and St. Francis Yacht Club.
It's windy, the waves get big, the breeze is strong, the competition is intense.
It was varied conditions. We had different tides, we had different wind speed.
We chose J105 fleet because it was the most competitive fleet with some of the best sailors in the bay.
I love the addition of the classic boats. Super cool to see those guys out there, those spinnakers up and racing.
It's coming down to just a few moves on the race course determining who wins the race.
Everything from cities to hills to like tech startups. There's just so many things going on. I feel like the whole San Francisco Bay is just like burning with energy, different types.
Regatta was fantastic, 79 boats. Parties were great. Everybody seemed to have fun.
I feel like I get to see my whole sailing family every time I come.
We love everything about this regatta. We look forward to it all year.
Julia?
Sir?
Next week, the 11th through the 15th at your club.
Which is reliably windy and iconically beautiful.
Your club or the bay?
Both.
Yeah, our club is a little reliably windy at times. It's a fantastic regatta. We're looking forward to it. I'll help a little bit with the video over there, but I'm plenty busy between the Louis Vuitton Cup watch parties and then getting ready for the Stag Cruise, which is at the end of this month, which I am the chair, and happily so this year. It's really going to be a lot of fun and a good event. So is this. Thanks, Rolex, for all you do for our sport, including here in the Bay Area.
Absolutely.
For this event. Julia, that gets us to the D block. And you may have something to say about Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Get your finger ready because at least one of these may require a little finger work.
Uh-oh.
Did I say that?
No.
Yeah, nice video. The bridge in the background always looks amazing. It is. It's our Sydney Opera House. Why, Julia, I think we dedicate this to us. This came from Sweeney. Sweeney sent this one through, so he's, I'm sure, intended for us to see this.
Yes.
Why age gracefully when you can age like an old cheese? I never thought of myself as an old cheese, but maybe that's true. Full of character and slightly grumpy. Julie Aarons would say slightly grumpy.
Offensive.
I see offensive.
I know, but there's a difference.
Yes, fingerwork Stingray. Pub time, Jon Emmett is saying he's going to abandon us for the pub. Julia, I know how much you like vegans, right?
Yes.
And vegetarians.
Mm-hmm.
This also is from Graham, and he dedicates this to you. We have never found a cave painting of a salad.
I love it.
Huh? Sweeney sent that.
Yes.
And if anybody's ever out in the street here in front of the Beach Street Yacht Club, full disclosure here. I mean, I'm not a carnivore. I'm an omnivore. And as did we talk about this on the show with Andrew McIrvin the other day? Or he and I talked about it maybe offline?
I don't think
We're
so.
omnivores, and the humans have always been omnivores, and you should eat vegetables, and you should eat some meat.
Yes.
Probably less red meat than some people do. And you should avoid the poison, he said.
Yes.
And we all now know.
Sugar.
Which is sugar. Don't eat sugar, like that thing I brought you from Chestnut Street yesterday. Nice one, Graham Sweeney. And then finally, for Julia's finger, just to keep it well lubricated and exercised. And this is an oldie. I think we've used it before, but not for years. This is the back end of a fin. I sail because for golf, soccer, and tennis, you only need one ball. Julia, we started the show talking about cojones, and we end the show. I like to, as we say, we like to, bookend the shows.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Which reminds me of a joke about bricking a camel. We'll do that one another time. Avoid sugar, Gordon Smith is saying. Every club has reliably windy conditions until Regatta Week arrives. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to all of you. That gets us to the finish line. And Julia, at this point, you always like to say...
Yes. Don't miss this opportunity to like, follow, and share. And sharing is especially important and at this time, too, because everybody's interested in the cup.
Yeah, indeed. And I see a lot of people on there, whether it's their Friday afternoon or Friday night, heading to the beach, heading to the bar, heading to the pub. Mm-hmm. But if you care, lots of comments today. If you care to leave a comment, even if you're watching in replay, please do. We always go back and read them, if for no other reason, to be sure nobody's being croutonic.
Yes.
And nobody's leaving a personal attack or using coarse language or, participating in name calling. We don't approve of that here. And all of us on here, all of the FOSI, everybody else, help us enforce that. Thank you, Alan Long. Thank you to all of you who helped make this show possible, especially those of you who contribute a few bucks to us each month via Patreon. Become a patron at patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. And a whole lot of people made this show possible because of images, audio, and video. And there they are, Julia. Final thoughts.
We've got a lot to work on for the next month.
We do. We'll get through the America's Cup, and then we can all take a collective deep breath of a sigh of relief. But in the meantime, we will do another watch party tomorrow, 0500 Pacific, 0800 on the East Coast, 1200 UTC, and 1400, 2 p.m. in Barcelona, CET. Join us for that. They've been a lot of fun, and everybody on here that's been joining us, thank you for your contributions to those shows. Mark Holland, especially you, our new statistician. We appreciate what you've done. Gordon Smith, Graham Sweeney, Ed Worley, our Zoomers, and thank you very much indeed. See you in the morning, bright and early, our time, 0500. In the meantime, go do some sailing. Sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.